Welcome to the Comic Coach podcast with me and Stroud. Indeed, I am the comic coach, and indeed it is my podcast. And as you can tell by both of our shiny, smiley faces, we are recording this on the hottest day of the year so far in the UK. It is quite warm in London town, but we are going to look fabulous and be fabulous. So lovely listeners and viewers of the Comic Coach podcast today. Super excited because this woman is awesome and she's doing many, many awesome things. Let's get a massive welcome to Leila Green. Hello, soul. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, you're so welcome. It is so lovely to have you. And it is. We are recording this in June, aren't we? And it is super hot today, isn't it?
It is. I'm in shorts. It's lucky the camera down you up.
Yeah, I'm also in shorts. And actually, truthful thing, actually my gym gear, because after this I'm going to the gym. Oh yeah, that's what we do when we're, fit and healthy and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Role modelling, taking care of yourself.
Thank you very much. It is. And I love a little bit of gym, and I'm now going 3 or 4 times each week. Feels so much better because I have to get fit for my show. See? And do a show, so all that. My lovely listeners like to know where everybody is. They're quite an interested lot. So where in the world are you today?
I'm in Beckenham, which is in South London. It's just kind of on the edge of the suburbs where London meets Kent.
I know it. It is a good part of the world. It's definitely a good part of our... And how is your world? How's your week been? Have you had a good week this week?
Yeah, I have. I think the good weather, although we're British, we always moan about the weather, whatever it is, it does kind of give us an instant mood boost. And especially when you're waking up early and the sun's shining and you're making your curtains before you start melting and all really irritable, just for that early morning slot, it's really nice.
Oh, it's so delicious. And there's kind of, that brightness and that joy. And and I'm doing this June mid-year reset. So I'm doing this sort of meditation. It's basically just to really help me get back into doing meditation every day. My practice is pretty good, but sometimes I miss certain days and I don't really know why. And getting up and just having that, and I put these headphones on and I sit in here and the light is coming in and it's like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning and it's so joyous and it's like, and then I get hot and a bit sweaty, but apart from that, it's fine. Anyhow, very excited that you could come join because I think what you're doing is awesome. Now, all of my regular listeners and viewers on YouTube will, of course, know that I like to ask everybody some questions about impact and all of that good things. Are you ready?
I am. I feel like I'm on a TV quiz show. I'm that excited.
You're going to win lots of love and praise and lots of people commenting on it. There you go. And people going, oh my gosh, she's awesome. I should follow her. I should learn from her. This is brilliant bits, So question number 1. I know I think somewhere in my sort of psyche, it's like, I clearly want to do a TV quiz show. So I basically created my own podcast. I will. And as regular listeners and people that follow me will know that part of my plan over the next year is that I'm going to do some more telly and stuff like that and start doing all my comedy stuff. So I shall do a quiz. There we go. Put it out there. So question number 1. Let's be practicing question number 1. Who's had the greatest impact on your life?
So I had to think about this one. And I think it's my grandma, which might be a cliched answer, but I am mixed race. So my dad's mum is an Indian woman. So she was raised in East Africa in this very stiflingly strict Muslim community. And because it was quite upper middle class, there were additional parameters on how you should behave, what you should wear, what you should do, what was okay. And she fought like firepower through all of that. So to her dying day, she remained livid that her brothers got to finish school and she didn't. And she was so upset when her parents told her that she had to stay home now and learn domestic duties, which, they had staff anyway. So I don't even know what the point of that was. And she ran away every day. Obviously not that well because they found her repeatedly. But eventually her dad said, okay, you can come to work with me. And he had a soap factory. And so she learned from watching her dad how business works, how the numbers work, how the product works. And when she was really young, she set up her first business, which was a clothes shop. And this is at a time when women couldn't get bank accounts. So the thought of a woman having a commercial lease and having like trade accounts with suppliers is just so outrageous that, everyone in the community was like, what's she doing? We better keep our daughters away from her in case they get some funny ideas. And she's amazing. And she went on to be really successful. But it comes at a cost. I think that first wave of pioneers who push for that change they sometimes pay the personal price of being kind of ostracized from the community because people are scared. People are intimidated by new ideas, new ways, new fire. And her own mum, so my grandma, she was betrothed before she was born. So she didn't even jet before her life had been decided for her.
Wow.
I come from a long line of women fighting for a chance, equality, a seat at the table, the ability to do whatever they want to do. And I think, it's important to connect to our ancestors and see progress because, you don't get from someone who's betrayed before they were born, and then someone who wasn't allowed to go to school, and then me, someone who's got an Oxford degree, without an awful lot of fight. And those fights will have had injuries. There would have been wounds, there would have been tough times, there would have been pain in that fight. But my grandma was just remarkable. And to her dying day, she was a ferocious superpower.
Oh, she sounds amazing. What was her name?
Gaussian.
Oh, well, we are sending all the vibes and respects to wherever. Oh, she just sounds awesome. And like you say, she was really glam. She was always like really made up and right.
She had lots of marriages. There was a bit of a whole kind of like, I don't know, you can make a soap opera out of her life. Like she had lots of glitz and glam, loved dancing, loved a G&T.
I mean, she sounds, if ever there was a powerful woman whose film should be made, it sounds like hers should be made. Because it just, because to do that and to have the courage. And I love the fact that, eventually her dad was like, okay, you can just come to work with me. It's fine. That's the way of
trouble. It's easier.
Yeah. It's easier to do that, and like you say, that line and that, to have the drive to keep on going and to keep on pushing, as you say, it does come at a personal cost, but then also the rewards can also be there. So, yeah, love it. Very good. Very good. Question number 2. So what keeps you motivated in what you do?
I think just the fact that we're not at a point where I'm okay with how society is against women, how society is against mums in particular. And I think it's hard when you're trying to make a kind of big shift culturally because you think, it's so massive. It's, the prejudice is so deep. What can I, as one person, really do? And it's easy to get demotivated if you start kind of seeing the scope of the problem in that view where it just feels nice, insurmountable. But then, my grandma's got through insurmountable cultural challenges, so is her mum. Like it has happened before. And, I haven't been a parent long. My boys aren't yet 3, but I quickly realized there were norms, accepted cultural norms that I was just not okay with. And I was kind of looking around at other people who'd been parents a lot longer than I had, who's so much older, and being like, are you really okay with this? Is this it? Like, are we all falling into this trap and silencing ourselves? Like, what's actually happening? And I found that once you give space to those conversations, actually people are thinking like you. It's not you being the outsider. We spoke a little bit earlier about how sometimes it feels like you're the outsider or you're not welcome in a community. But actually, I think with this, as soon as I've said, hang on a minute, is this really what you want? Then people have kind of like jumped on the bandwagon.
Yeah, hugely. And I think, if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see her fabulous t-shirt. And underneath the t-shirt, it says, fuck mum guilt. And it's a fabulous idea. And I think it's also important, that you have 3 boys, don't you?
I have triplets, yeah.
You have triplets. Yeah, I love how casually you're like, yes, I have triplets. And I still look great. I've got 1 and he's 13. And I'm like, holy moly. And, part of the reason I want you on the pod was because I think what you're doing by challenging the conventions about how, as you say, how are we parenting, what's going on in the role of women, but also the lightness that you bring to it. Because I love that whole thing of fuck mum guilt. I think it's brilliant because it's like, rather than going, oh, let's spend ages in the shame of it. And you're just like, no, let's move on from it. Stop it.
No. Well, what really kind of sparked this, if I can have a little tantrum, is the kind of, we're talking about norms and that narrative that it's a good thing, that it's not just normal, but it's a sign of how much you love and care for your children, which is what midwives I've heard say. And I also saw this on a major Instagrammer reel. And that's really what triggered me into doing this, because I was like, no, it's not a metric for how much you love your kids. Like how poor your mental health is, how exhausted you are, isn't a metric for how good a mum you are. Like no one can even judge how good a mum anyone else is. Like what even metric could you use? Like it's crazy. So I really just, in a moment of anger, wanted to just say something that no, this isn't, it's not a sign that you're doing a great job. Like this isn't something to be proud of, like with women parading ourselves with hair shirts and the one that suffers the most is the most pious. It's not that. It's not, that's a trap, right? That's a trap society's fed you. That's a trap patriarchy given you. Right? Actually, what you need to do is say no. It's not serving you. You can choose to be kinder to yourself. You can choose to step away from all of this and then judgment. Like it's not serving us. So that's where that came from.
Yeah. And I love it. And I think there's something so important about owning that as a discussion and challenging, as you say, the status quo and just sort of going, I remember, and actually it's in my, there's a little bit about this in my new show, coming on tour from September. Do go on Stroud.com/tour, because I am going to be coming around the UK with my comedy show. And one of the things that I write about, and there's one particular sort of slightly more ranty voice in my show, is this whole idea about when William was younger, my son, and I remember we all went out for dinner as mums, and they'd all come to see one of my last comedy shows. And I'm not joking, for the first 20 minutes, all everybody was talking about was their own kids. And I was like, as fascinating as that is, I actually want to know who you are. And just because we might have all had sex at roughly the same time, and then I was like, and I don't even have that in common. You know, I haven't got that in common with you. I don't, you know, so it's like, can we actually work out? And they were like, oh. And again, it's that thing of like, we fall into these traps of like, oh, we need to talk about our kids all the time. We need to do this. And it's like, no, we don't. And we don't need to necessarily go down the sort of the mum guilt route as well and everything else like that. And we have choice. So yes, cheering you on. Very good. Question number 3. How do you play?
Well, I actually play a lot because I've 2-year-olds. So I think before motherhood, life had got a bit too serious in retrospect. Okay. You know, my business was everything to me, entrepreneurship, my career, my identity was my business. Like, you know, you talk about personal branding, but it can go wrong. You know, that balance can tick in the wrong direction. And it was all about hard working, you know, very much that work ethic through Oxford, through school, through driving businesses, through recessions, through COVID. It's like, it's quite tough, you know, there wasn't space for play. And part of the magic of motherhood is that you get to do all of this play. And yesterday I was listening to this podcast, Pushing the Pram, to soft play. And you'd ask someone else, how do you play? And I was like, oh, I'm literally on the way to soft play. I'm going to go down the slides. I'm going to up tunnels. I'm going to pretend there's a crocodile chasing us. And like, this is just a normal Wednesday for me. And that's incredible.
Right. And I think there's so much weight in what you've answered there, because I think somewhere within the world of business and work, and obviously this is my thing. It's like, why do we as adults not play more? Why do we not allow ourselves more laughter? And I think you're right on that treadmill of what we think success is. And again, we fall into this trap of like, we get up, we go to the factories, we work, we come back. If we're lucky, we get to drink gin in the evening. Repeat, right? And it's like, at what point did we all sign up to that when we're at work, it has to be very serious? I'm about serious work. I want people to be successful, but we don't have to do it in everything's got to be heavy. Why don't we find the lightness? And there's so many people that I've met who their kids have been their portal back into the world of play. And I'm so grateful that kids do that. But also, I think as adults, we shouldn't only need kids to be our portal back into play, but we have to prioritize it because you've got 3, it's like we're going to soft play. But actually, my whole thing is us adults need to be going to our own equivalent of our own soft play. And by the way, there is actually a soft play place in East London. It's very good. And you might be able to drink a couple of cocktails and then bounce around in a ballpark. And it's really fun. But it's that thing. And I think when I hear, as you say, it's your norm to go and play because you've got kids. And it's like, actually, that should continue all the way through our life, because when we play, we're connected, we're present, and we have those moments of deep fun and joy, right?
And my mum, she worked in nurseries all her life. She's a nursery teacher. And she talks about awe and wonder. You know, that was her mission, was to like spark that awe and wonder in the kids. And I can see how she plays with my kids. And that's inspired how I play. And like many teachers working in the state system, you know, she can entertain kids for hours with like a stick and a bucket. Like she doesn't need resources because she's had decades of no reacts. And she can create magical, wonderful worlds and adventures. And we're all right there with her. And it's so beautiful to watch this kind of creative process. And now my kids are at the stage where they're starting to tell me these grand tales about things that I know they haven't really done. Like Rafa, for instance, told me he'd been in a helicopter. Definitely not. And he also told me he rode a camel to get a chocolate biscuit. You know, it's just, but for them, that's as plausible as getting the bus. You know,
right? Right. And it is, and it's that thing. And quite often I ask the questions about wonder. And literally I can ask a room of really smart people and I'll be like, so when did you last allow yourself to wonder? And they're like, huh? And part of the gift of doing clowning, which is a big part of my world, is that clowning reconnects you with that sense of wonder, you know? And it's, you know, you can do it just by staring at the sky and noticing some clouds and go, oh my gosh, I'm part of this bigger thing. But adulthood currently is very much about, oh, we get really serious and, you know, I don't have time for that. And it's like, actually, oh, you know, your kids have got it right. Your mum's got it right. It's like, let's create, you know?
It's the way that she feeds the questions. So if they were looking at clouds, for instance, she'd be saying, what can you see? And what does that look like? And do you think we could draw that shape? And how would it feel if the wind blew? And, you know, it's all of that kind of really just being led by them, but trying to sort of stretch that experience for them, which isn't done by your managers, your coaches, and generally your mentors. That seems frivolous. You know,
it seems frivolous. And I mean, you know, it's a sort of sad indicament, isn't it, where we are. But the UN, I think it's the 11th of June, is the UN Day of Play. And it's the second year of this. So the UN have mandated that whole day of play because actually they're saying that it's a right of all children to be able to play. And I obviously think this is brilliant. I applaud it. And there's a whole load of stuff going on in terms of within the UK and globally about this. Brilliant. However, for me, I'm also on a mission that I think adults need to play more as well. Because if as adults we aren't playing, we can have all of the interventions with kids, but they aren't seeing us play. And so therefore it's like, oh, I do that when I'm a kid. Then I become a teenager because my adults aren't playing. So playing obviously stops. And, you know,
I think you've picked up on a point that I've been thinking about in terms of role modeling. You know, if just small things like my kids saw my brother with a golf hat on and now they all want golf hats, right? You know, it's like we're role modeling all the time. Mm-hmm. If you're not playing in front of them, or if you're not exercising in front of them, if you're not reading in front of them, they're not going to get that message, you know?
Right. And you're so right. So I remember my missus, because when William was a bit younger, he wasn't really reading. Typical kind of, you know, the boy thing, not really into reading, everything else like that. And she pointed out, she's like, but when does he see you read apart from when you're on holiday? Because the time that I naturally read is before I go to bed, and he was asleep. So I made a conscious choice. So I now have books dotted around like in my kitchen and, you know, in my lounge, so that as opposed to autopilot, let me pick up my phone, I'll actually pick up my books and will read. And so William walks in now and he sees me reading. Strangely enough, he's not quite so, he doesn't love it, but he's sort of a bit more open to the idea of reading. Got to role model it. Oh gosh, it's like we've thought about these things. Oh, whisper it quietly. It's like we've actually thought about this. There's question number 4. You did brilliantly. What one action have you taken that has really impacted your life?
I would say probably leaving employment in my early 20s, which it didn't feel like a really big thing, because when you're young and you don't have a mortgage and you don't have kids, you're just having fun, trying stuff out. Like, it didn't feel like, oh my God, you have to make a success of this or you're going to be a public shame. But it is kind of in my DNA. My parents had a business when I was younger. My aunt's a yoga teacher. My grandma had lots of businesses. And I didn't feel right in that kind of grad scheme corporate structure. And I felt a bit voiceless. So there's a recurring theme here that, you know, when you have an idea, because you're so junior, you might not be taken seriously, or you might be saying, hey, there's an opportunity in the industry, I think. And everyone's like, nah, you've misread that. Amazon aren't going to stick around. And I'm like, no, seriously, I think they are. I think Kindle's here to stay. And they're like, nah. So I was very much like, well, I think there is, so I'm going to do something. So I think there's a chance that the industry can shift and I want to ride this wave on my own. And, you know, since my early 20s, I'm 41 now, I have kind of been in charge of my own destiny. And in that respect, that I can choose, you know, what I want to say yes what I want to say no to, and have different kind of priorities and flexibilities in life. And yeah, there was a time when that got a bit unhealthy and I was working too much and it was just too intrinsic to who I was. But it is a big shift, I think. How did you find it?
What, not having a job?
9 to 5, you know, regular.
Yeah, I mean, I think I didn't really ever have a regular job. So, you know, like, I think my last job was when I was a field sales rep and I was selling crisps, and I was 21, 22, driving around my little Fiesta, selling crisps around Devon, eating quite a lot of the crisps as well, which I don't think was the point. And, you know, and I was really good at it. And, you know, and I made the region most successful, blah, blah, blah. And then I was offered a proper job with a proper big company. And as I was offered that, I was also offered a place in the drama school that I really wanted to go to. So I had this head versus heart moment, right? And like you, my dad had been an entrepreneur. And so I'd grown up until he died. I grew up watching that you didn't have to do a job. And more, and even now, because we hang out with other entrepreneurs and we're in that, we think it's the norm. But actually, when I talk to other parents of like where we was at school, I'm like, oh no, I'm still a complete anomaly. And it's that thing. So for me, I haven't had a job. I've had many different businesses. And actually, for me, the clarity has only come as I've got older about really focusing in on what I'm good at and getting other people to do stuff. And I think, you know, when you start stuff out, it's like, well, I'll do it all and I'll keep, you know, and I'll do it all. Whereas now it's like with my leadership impact school, it's like I've got other people that are growing it, that have built sales and marketing side behind it and all of that stuff, you know. And I think it's that understanding about where's my zone of genius? What is it that I should be doing? And that's kind of been as much as a journey for me as I think it would be for lots of people to leave corporate. You know, do you think you could work for anybody else again? No, neither could I.
I might do something that was sort of like connected to a charity or an advisory role for something.
Yeah.
About, but I couldn't like do the polystyrene carpet and the ceiling tiles and strip lighting and the booths. That's not.
Yeah, no. So if you're listening to this thinking, oh gosh, I wish I could employ both of these two women, bad luck, not going to happen. How do you take care of yourself?
Well, I'm really strong on this actually, and I often get kind of like smarmy comments like, oh yeah, you're really good at prioritizing yourself, aren't you? It's like, yeah, I am. Like no one else is going to do it for me.
Yeah.
It has to start with us. So exercise is really good for my mental health and physical health. So I'd always done a lot of running and yoga. I've done like ultra marathons, things like that before I had kids.
I love how casually. I was so with you there on the running and the yoga, and then you're like, oh, I've done ultra marathons. I'm like, okay, yeah.
It was a long time ago. But it's a coping mechanism, I think, for dealing with challenges, resourcing myself, dealing with the stress, the overwhelm, just constant noise, the babies. So that was my release. And even when my boys were quite young, like just a few months old, I'd paused my gym membership on direct debit for 6 months, and I'd forgotten about this because I did it when I was about to give birth. And then the payment went out, and it's quite an expensive gym. So I was like, right then, well, that means I'm back.
I love it. It's done its work. Bing. Oh yes, I'm back now.
Oh, you know, that's permission. I do get judged for it. And I did an article, Daily Mail, which, you know, maybe is you get what you expect with these things, about the fact that I feel zero mum guilt for going to the gym. And I was encouraging other women that, you know, they need to look after your health and well-being. You don't do it. Everyone's going to offer it to you on plate. And I got comments like I was neglecting my kids. I was a bad mother. I was selfish. It's like, I'm not leaving my babies on their own. when I go to the gym. Like, they are either with their dad or with a nanny. Like, I'm not neglecting them. They're not just sat in a cot at home waiting for me to get off the treadmill and come back. Like, we've thought about this. But it's just so deep, this idea that mums shouldn't look after themselves, that it should be this...
It almost becomes, I think this is one of those things where it almost becomes like a badge of honor of like, oh yeah, I've had so much to do with the kids. And there's this narrative that I think has become acceptable of, oh yeah, no, I haven't got any time for myself. Yeah, no, I haven't. When was the last time? Yeah, no, so busy. Got to look after Jack and Henry and John, and other names are of course available, and it's this really, it makes me genuinely sad, because I think on the flip side of that, and I've worked with quite a lot of women who have, in essence, their identity has become so about being a mother, and then have gone into a negative connotation with that, aka guilt. And so their level of then self, when their kids grow up, their sense of self is so diminished. And I've worked with lots of unbelievably smart, talented women who have lost themselves during the time of being only mother, that by the time they come back to me and they're thinking about what next, they don't know who they are anymore. And that makes me really sad for a lot of women,
I think there is a flux. I mean, I thought my life, like, this is naive me, I thought my life, you have your 9 months, your 12 months off, you go back, and then you're just being the badass female entrepreneur you were before. Like, I had no idea. I massively underestimated the life impact that having children would bring. And for me, because it was so extreme, because I've got triplets, I couldn't pretend that I could just go back to being the old me, and that world is still there for me. So I had to accept that this is who I am now. But it's not, I didn't want to be defined by it. I still wanted to write and speak and be out there and doing things. And, I know the types of mums you mean, where their world is what their kids are up to. And early on, I knew that I didn't want to be like that one in WhatsApp group. Like that wasn't, there's more to me than this, although this is a very important part of my life. And I'm happy to give up lots of other things in my life for the health and well-being of my kids for now, whilst they're this small. But it's not the be all and the end all. And it is important for all mums, I think, whatever age your kid is, to take breaks for your mental well-being and exercise. Like this morning, I've done a meditation class and been through it before coming on here, and I do get those eye rolls like, oh, it's all right for you. And it's like, if I have to choose this, I have to make this happen. I have to design my life and build in the childcare or pay for the childcare to make this possible. It's not like, ever offered to you on a plate. Like, you have to say, this is what I need, and this is for the benefit of the whole family. You wouldn't want a CEO who was really unhealthy, like in a bad mental place, about to have a breakdown, motivating and leading a team through quite a difficult time, which is effectively what mums do. It's like, we're setting the tone, and this is top down. So, we need to be looking after ourselves, not just so that we can look after everyone else who wants us on our A game 24/7, but because we're role modeling, like, this is what healthy adulthood looks like.
And I love everything you just said. And I think there's something about, consciously crafting your own life. And this doesn't mean, and I think it's really important from my perspective, it's not, if you have consciously chosen not to work so that you can be with your kids, awesome, cool. Yeah. That's brilliant. There is absolutely no judgment here, I don't think, from either of us. I think it's like, if that's the world that you're in and you want to do that, awesome, as long as you've consciously crafted it. But even when you've done that, just having those little moments for self is so important because of the reasons that you've just said. If you want to work and you want to do that, awesome. But then you've still got to have those moments for self. Even if you want to, it's making sure that you don't lose you for the sake of others, and that requires energy, and it requires thought. And sometimes I think people fall into the trap of, well, this is just how it is. And then I'll complain and, spend a bit of time, messaging on a post about somebody that's on the Daily Mail of like, but you've neglected your children. It's like, I think, lovely soul that wrote that, I think that's probably that you need to look in your own lovely mirror and go, why did I feel compelled to do that? Is it because actually what she's doing is scary to me?
Yeah, and I think this judgment around that does come from other mums as well.
Oh, completely.
That there is a lack of compassion.
Yeah. Us women, brutal to each other. It's like meet each other with kindness. And, if you're doing one thing which somebody can do and, and you're like, oh, how have you get curious. How have you managed to do that? Because none of us got, I don't know about you, but I didn't get a rule book when I had William. They didn't go, here you go. Here is the guide of how to be a perfect mother. This is what, no, it didn't come. Just didn't come.
Also, like nothing applies to triplets. So this is a free pass for me to like go completely against what everyone else is doing. Yeah. There's a friend of mine, well-meaning, gave me a book that was something like Your Baby Week by Week. And every week from when it's born, it shows you what the developmental milestones should be doing. And because I had mine so prematurely and they were in neonatal intensive care, they were in hospital for like 4 and 5 weeks, we were way behind, way behind everything in this book that was telling me what my kids should be doing. And in the end, I stopped reading it because I was like, it's just making me feel like we're failing. Like they're failing and we're never going to be able to catch up with the rest of society. And I realized that actually, if you have twins, triplets, if you have a child with a physical need, there are so many of us mums who are experiencing something that is not the norm. And when you read these books, or you go on Instagram and you look at this narrative, or you turn on the TV or wherever you're getting your story from, we don't fit. It's not for us. And, the yardstick that they're using, whether that's a growth chart from a midwife or anything, it's like it's rigged against us because it's not even the right bra for us to begin with. We can never do that. My babies will never be the same size as a full-term baby because there were 3 of them inside one size 8 person, right? So yeah, there's nothing wrong with them. That's just how it is, right? And I feel like, I felt a bit, I don't know, ostracized maybe from the mum community in the beginning or from the parenting community because there's so many books like this is what you should do, this is what should be happening. And if you look around your home and you're like, yeah, my life's not like that. Like,
yeah, it's so true. And it's so important, like what we absorb. And I'm very pleased that you put that book down and went, nah, don't want that book. It's not useful. Because I remember being at, I went to one NHS class and sat there and heard loads of women telling loads of other women, none of us had babies, how horrific birth was going to be. And they were trying to one up each other of like, oh yes, I had this mother and she had this and she had to have this and da. And I was sitting there and, years ago trying to hypnotherapist. I'm fully aware of what I put into my mind is then a language and it goes down a neuro pathway. And then this amazing, lovely midwife, she went, is anybody actually looking forward to giving birth? And I sort of gently put my hand up and was like, had amazing, was going to have him at home, was going to do hypnobirthing. I was like, yeah, I think it could be all right. And literally it was like, why is this woman thinking that? And I was like, because it could be that. I don't know what kind of birth I'm going to have, but actually I want to think it's going to be okay. And it's throughout, I think, because we're so bombarded by information, we're so bombarded by, oh, this expert, this story, that actually what we do sometimes is we stop hearing our own voice and the own truth of what's going on and what we need. And actually it's like, stop all the noise and just go back to self, because you know what? We've all been raising babies and families way before Instagram existed, way before all of these experts and books. You know what? We're here. Your grandma was here doing all of her awesome stuff. And you know what? She never watched an Instagram reel. She didn't.
No. And the healthcare that she would have had in Africa at that time would have been ropey.
Right. Right. Ropey. I love that. Yeah. Master of Understatement from there, Leila. It's like ropey at best.
Like we're so lucky, I have to keep my babies alive. I have like the technical equipment and specialist knowledge that previous generations just wouldn't have had. Yet somehow we're more scared of birth than we ever were. And there was a lot of fear around me because it's a high risk pregnancy. There's so many things can go wrong. And I really had to just, as you say, choose not to let that fear energy come into my being. And I really was conscious of not wanting to bring all these stress hormones into my blood and flood my babies with this stress because, you know, I'm in charge of looking after them and I'm setting the tone for all of us. And I'm really trying to keep as calm and balanced as possible. And it's hard when there's all this, oh my God, this thing could happen. Have you heard about what happened to this person? Oh my God, are you going to have this? Have you chosen that? It's like, there's so much fear. And I think when you really look at where we're at in the world, I think so much stuff is being driven by fear. And actually, that comes from taking the courage to slow stuff down and ask yourself the questions. I was just reading a book and it really stayed with me. So I was reading the Mel Robbins book. Loads of people have been reading, like #1 bestseller, you know, I think it's called Let Them. And the thing that really stood out to me over and above the simplicity of that model and it's useful and it's good and everything was when she said that, now I think this was America, so I don't think it was a worldwide stat and I'm not a statistician, so if I get it wrong, don't sue me. But in essence, she said only 30% of people will ever look at their own stuff. And when I read that and then I thought about the world, I was like, So that means there's 70% of the population who will be behaving, living, existing, and then will naturally pick up more on fear because they're choosing not to slow down and look at their stuff and look at who they are and how they're showing up and things, which then for me kind of went, okay. And she's like, there's no judgment. It's, you know, everyone can do as they want. But when you really think about that, it's like fear comes from change. Fear comes from knowing what's going on and looking at the scary stuff and like, why did I make that choice? Who am I in these situations? And I think when I hear those stories, you know, and the judgments from others and everything, quite often it is people just projecting fear in one way or another. And it's like, slow stuff down. We can change it, right? And I think there's fear of difference.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's not enough not enough diversity in motherhood because there's never in my life have I been in a scenario where people are fighting so evangelically and passionately for counter positions on everything. You know, whether you should breastfeed, whether you should bottle feed, whether you should baby wing, whether you should make periods. It's like there's so many people fighting different corners and they're afraid fundamentally of getting it wrong, which means they have to criticize the other side of the fence. And I think you're right. Like it's all fear driven. Like we can't say, oh, you do it completely differently. That's fine. Like, in my family, they did that because culturally, language, religion, everything was different. So one side would say to the other side, oh, you do it differently. That's fine. Everyone's doing it wrong. You need to do it our way.
And it's so, you know, it is so polarized, isn't it? Because everything is like, oh, you're right, you're left. You know, you're a Brexiteer, you're a Remainer. Everything is like you're on a side. And when you really kind of take a step back, a lot of that comes from all of the posturing and all of the noise that we get on all of the platforms. And what we've stopped doing is just listening to each other with kindness and accepting that we can be different and still like each other, still have a cup of tea. Other drinks are available.
It's doing it completely differently to you and it looks like they're doing all right. That's not a threat to you because it doesn't mean that you've made the wrong decision. It just means that's the right decision for them.
Yeah, because it's like we're different. Who knew? Oh, gosh, we've gone deep. Question number 6, final question. What have you been thinking about in the last couple of days? What's been in your beautiful, brilliant brain?
So I've got a TEDx talk coming up in a couple of weeks.
I mean, klaxon noise.
Two areas that I'm basically here for advice for on this. One is I think this has brought up the last remnants of the good girls play small, they keep quiet, they don't take up space, they don't say anything provocative. Like all of that conditioning that, you know, you think you've done with, this has been a trigger for that kind of stuff to come up in my head. Even to the point of like using physical space on the stage, like I'm not doing it. And it's not because like I'm a dancer, I know how to do it. It's not because I don't know how to do it. It's because like there's still something in me that's like, oh, I can do it, but I can only do it if I'm like hiding and small and not really saying what's in my soul. And that's been an interesting barrier. And then the second thing, which I had an aha moment listening to one of your episodes about masks yesterday, is because in that episode, for the listeners who haven't listened to it recently, you talk about how you caught sight of yourself in this ridiculous corporate outfit with kitten heels. And you were like, who am I? And I actually stopped the pram. I was pushing them back from soft play. And I was like, oh my God, you need to take note of this, because I started ordering all these clothes that just aren't me at all. So I was like, oh, I'm going to be on the stage. I need a suit. I need tailored trousers. I need high heels. I'm like, there's a reason you don't have any of that stuff in your wardrobe. That's because it's not you. Like, and if you want to think about taking up space and moving around and you're in shoes that you never wear and you can't walk in, this isn't going to work. Like, but there's something in my soul that was like, well, professional speakers, they have a sharply cut jacket and they have this and they have that. And you've got to look like that. And then I was like, no, I'm going to have your kitten heels on. It's going to be the same thing. Which undermines everything I'm saying about masking. So I can't do that.
I love both of those. And I think you're, I'm very pleased that story resonated with you. And I mean, as somebody who does go around and speak quite a lot, yesterday I was wearing big white baggy trousers and a white t-shirt and a pair of Cookie Monster trainers.
This gives me hope.
Yeah. Got to be you, because the thing is, and it's so interesting to me how many people are still so terrified of just owning all of who they are, and as I say very openly in many different platforms and forums and everything else like that, it's like, it's taken me till I'm 46 and a half. And yes, I'm very proud of the fact that I still say a half, because I'm basically 5 in my mind. And, to actually be to a place where I'm like, you know what, I can come on the podcast with like imperfect hair and like my gin stuff, because it's my podcast and this is when I'm recording it. And this is real, because rather than I should have perfect lighting and make sure it's all, it's like, no. The conversation is what matters to me. Talking to you and hearing what you've said, that's what matters. Because actually, part of being the Comic Coach podcast is that I'm me every day. And this is how I live my life every day. And I think that whole idea of, having to be and put on stuff in order for others to think that we are worth listening to, or there's weight in what we're saying, is like, that is old school stuff. And it's like, if we can't be freedom, and if you are somebody, again, like with the kindness of, if you decide to be a mum and that's all you're doing and you're not working, brilliant, kudos. If you are a woman who loves wearing high heels, or a man who loves wearing high heels, or a they who likes wearing high heels, crack on. But it's not me and Leila, and it's that thing of going, by being ourselves, that's how people can hear our truth and our words. And if that's different to your truth and your words, that's okay. But let's not waste any of our time trying to be anybody, because you're magnificent as you are, with your fabulous yellow hairband and your fuck t-shirt and the thing and all of this kind of stuff.
T-shirt, I think. I'll wear this t-shirt, or maybe I'll get some jeans.
But yeah, I think you should, man.
Interesting, because I hadn't realised, this program, it's also deep. Like, I hadn't realised I'd fallen into this groove until I heard the kitten heel story, and I was like, oh, this is you. This is you.
Yeah.
Or to do something about this.
This is what we want. This is what we want. Now, Leila, I knew it was going to be a joy talking to you, but I'm aware of your time and, of course, my good listeners' time. How do people find and follow you on the beautiful thing that is the internet, so that they can send you lots of love and like, we love you, you're brilliant?
I'm on LinkedIn quite a lot. I'm just Leila Green on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter you can sign up to on my website, which is leilagreen.com.
Awesome. They will both be in the show notes. Leila, I knew it's going to be a joy. Thank you so much for coming on the Comic Coach podcast with me. It has indeed been awesome. Good luck in your TED Talk, and I will make sure that I share that once it comes out. You're going to be fabulous.
Oh, thank you. I've loved being here.
I could talk to Leila for days. How cool was she? And how truly, truly, truly brilliant was what she said. Her stuff about her grandma really landed. And then just this whole idea about rewriting narratives. I'm really into that at the moment. And I think it's really interesting that we can rewrite our own narratives about all of the things that we believe to be true. And it's funny, actually, today I just saw somebody that I went to school with. I think she left when we were about 12. I haven't seen her for quite a few years, let's say more than 10. And we were both talking, there are some things that are so indoctrinated into us, that it still impacts our behavior now. And it's that, how do we rewrite those rules, And it's something that my wife has noticed on many occasions. So if there's a bit of grass, right, this is how ridiculous my school was. If there's a bit of grass, I still will walk all the way around it rather than crossing it, because I used to get told off if I walked on the grass. You weren't allowed in the grass. And I know that's a really silly example, but there are so many deeper examples where I have made a belief at a certain point and it's still driving my behavior now. And we have to challenge it. And sometimes they're from our own experiences, and sometimes it's from a bigger societal perspective. And I think with what she's doing with Fuck Mum Guilt, I think is awesome. And I think it's an important thing, because life is too short to spend our time in guilt. Life is too short to spend our time not playing. And life is too short to not spend time, a little bit of time each day, prioritizing ourselves so that we can be awesome to the rest of our worlds. So on that, prioritizing self, I am going to go to the gym. See, this says made for cardio. And if you're not watching it, I'm showing my t-shirt, which says made for cardio. So I'm going to go to the gym now and go look after myself a little bit. Thank you once again for listening to the Comic Coach podcast with me, Stroud. Do like, subscribe it. If you're curious to find out more and get some more stuff from me, then go onto YouTube and you subscribe to my channel. It's called the Comic Coach. You'll find it very easy. So do subscribe. I love having people come on there and share comments and all that kind of good stuff. Thank you ever so much for listening, and we'll catch up next week. All right.